have a selection of Christmas ornaments. There's a Christmas mug as well, which are ready for people to paint. And Anne's just picking one up to give you a sense of size. You can see how it is on her hand. But this film is not so much about these ornaments, cute as they are, but actually what we're going to be talking about are the bits and pieces that we've got that are particularly good for handprints and footprints for toddlers and babies. Obviously you can decorate them in the same way, they don't have to have handprints, but we're going to show you how to do handprints. We do have this Christmas tree plate, which is really sweet. It really would only be good for a handprint of a very tiny hand, to be honest, because the lips around it make it difficult, whereas things that are flat like this, you can put your hand right up to the edges. So this is the technique for doing a handprint. I'm not going to do it with glaze on Anne's hand because her hand is too big, so you can't really see it with glaze, but I will show you how to put the glaze on after I've shown you the technique for the handprint. So I've chosen the plate to show you the technique simply because it's the biggest item that we've got, but it's the same for all of them. Now, a handprint is quite simple, and Anne will demonstrate now. Imagine her hand had glaze on the bottom of it, and you just need to put it down on the plate, but then trying to keep your toddler's hand still, press down to make sure that the paint is everywhere. It's a lot easier with a toddler than a baby. With babies, sometimes they move their hands around and it's very, very difficult to get them to be still. And to be honest, some babies also keep their hands, in a fist. And if you can't manage a handprint, a footprint works better with a baby. And there is a different technique for a footprint, which we're going to demonstrate with a hand. So what you need to do is put the heel down first and then slowly press the foot down. Now obviously Anne's hand is bigger than the star. Your footprint needs to have the toes on the star. So you start off with the heel down, and then as you press the baby's toes towards the plate, you lift the heel up so that there's only a bit of the foot at any one time stuck on, and that tends to be less smudgy. If you try to do it all at once, what often happens is that your footprint will smudge. So do it again, Anne, just to see. So you press the baby's heel down, and then as you pull their heel up, you're pushing their toes down and then trying to take it all off without a smudge. If this goes wrong, the great thing about this bisque is that you can actually wash your underglaze off and start again. But the only thing that you need to be really careful with in that case is that you let it dry properly, which actually takes a bit of time. So if you end up washing it off and starting again, then I'd suggest that you go away and do it later. Washing off the darker colours can be a bit of an issue, so you want to be careful. Better to get it right the first time, to be honest. We're going to show you on a piece of paper simply because the bits of bisque that we've got are too small for Anne's huge hands. And we've chosen black underglaze, which I imagine, Anne's staring at me now because I said her hands were big. We've chosen black underglaze simply because it's easiest to see. It's unlikely that you would choose that colour. Although we wouldn't recommend a really light colour. Something like yellow doesn't really show up as well as some of the others. So choose your colour carefully. Anyway, so what we have discovered is that dipping a child's hand or feet into the underglaze makes it far, far too thick, and it just ends up as a big gloopy lump on the bisque. And as well as the fact that then you can't see what it is, but also when you fire it, it tends to get little pinholes and blisters, and it's not very good. It needs to be thinner, but obviously not so thin that you can't see it. We tried paintbrushes, but we've discovered that sponging the underglaze on works better. So here's the demo. Anne's going to do her own hand. Obviously, you will do your toddler's hand. Sponge, dabbing, that's the technique. See, it's not that difficult, sponge and dabbing. obviously it might dry a bit, so you might have to go over the bits that you did first. And of course a baby's hand is much smaller, so it requires less dabbing. But after Anne's done this, we're going to show you it on a piece of paper. And you might consider doing a practice run on a bit of paper. You can see how much glaze is left in the pot. So, you know, there's enough to do, you know, to do a practice run and then to do it on the actual bisque. And although you can wash it off the bisque, it's better to get it right first time if you can. So here we go, the moment of truth. So Anne's going to use her other hand as if this was the grown-up's hand, squashing down particularly in the middle of her hand, because that's where your palm is, and you get it doesn't actually cover the whole thing, but hopefully that's worked. She's peeling off. Oh, that's very well done, Anne. And the thing to say is that the peel off is the moment where you have to be careful. Otherwise, what happens is that you elongate the fingers and you know, it looks a bit unreal. But if this was your 3-year-old's hand, you'd be delighted with that, especially if it was a nice bright colour on a lovely plate. One of the things we've discovered is that because these ceramics, after they're fired, will last a lifetime, it's a really good idea to take a really thin paintbrush and with the underglaze write the date or your child's name. Obviously you're not going to forget your child's name, but it's amazing how quickly it's hard to remember what year the handprint or the footprint was made. So it's such a nice idea to do the date. And the only rule is don't paint anything underneath your piece of pottery, because if you do, unfortunately, as the glaze melts, it will stick to the kiln shelf and then you won't get it back. So have a look at our website and book up what you'd like to do. That's Anne waving goodbye.